know sometimes in the beginning we tend to worry about cutting corners or saving money, but sometimes you're saving the pennies, but the dollars are flying out the window.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Dill. And right now, with your savvy guests, you're not up and running yet. But young graduates, is there a website they can contact you through, or if someone's interested, because the one thing our show is global. We are mostly in the U.S., but we definitely have listeners in the U.K. and Australia right now.
Okay.
So if somebody's in your area and would like to participate or find out more information, how would they contact you?
Okay. Well, first of all, young graduate, I'll give you the email address for young graduate, and that's young, YOUNG, graduate, GRADUATE, dot Yola site, which is YOLA, S for sugar, ITE.com. And that's got a lot of information and sort of images of some of the work I've done. Although Savvy Guest hasn't actually launched, you can actually go on to Savvy Guest, which is S for sugar, A double V for Victor, Y, and guest, GUES for sugar, T for Tommy, .com. So that's savvyguest.com. And you can actually pop your email address in there and we'll send you the link as soon as we've gone live.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Now, with Savvy Guest, that even though it's a web platform, that is strictly for the UK right now. Are you thinking about branching out to other areas, or you're not sure?
We are very sure that we're going to cover the UK nationally.
Okay.
We have got we are working with our sort of regional area at the moment, but it will grow nationally quite quickly, and that's because some of the companies we have on board have chains and branches outside of the region that would like to be included. However, long term, yes, we would like to look at licensing this in other countries as well. So, we will keep you informed, Yolanda, on maybe across the pond in the USA.
Definitely. I mean, I think this is an interesting concept. That's, when I reached out to you about, talking to you about it, it was that concept that really surprised me because of the fact that I think is greatly needed. I had a girlfriend, her son went to school to become a chef, spent a couple years there, loved cooking. And once he graduated and did 6 months in the field, he basically hated it because he didn't have a life. He didn't realize that they pretty much worked. I mean, literally worked almost 15, 20, 30 hours a day. I mean, it's only 24 hours, but it's almost like he didn't have time to even sleep.
Yeah.
And then he realized this was not the career he wanted because he couldn't have a life.
Yes.
But yet he was already in debt in school and has spent 2.5 years of his life doing something that he realized, yes, he loved the concept of cooking. He loves to cook. He loves food. But the actual business of cooking was not his forte. And had he had something like this where he could have followed a chef, through the week and saw how basically they worked around the clock, how you might only been able to sleep for a couple hours and you're right back in the kitchen. Then he would have been able to make that decision, 3 years ago,
Earlier.
and probably about $50,000 less in loans, way before he spent all that time. And now he's back in school looking at something else. So, unfortunately, that is the cycle even in the United States with some of our young people. Because they know they have to do something. They're just not sure what's the best thing to do. And then again, we have the second, I'll call the midlifers like ourselves, who's in 40, 50, and 60. And you had a career, and because of situations, you kind of need to look at some other options. And, you need to debate, like you said, understand what might be transferable skills.
Yes, yes.
So it's a big need around the world.
It's a real big deal at the moment here. A lot of people have lost jobs right across the world, but it's a massive problem that people are sat down thinking, well, where do I go next? How do I find this? Who do I speak to? And if there's nobody out there that they can reach out to, and we've got so many corporates out here who are doing whatever they're doing really great things, but just to give that person that time, it can only be a great motivator.
Starting anything new is always hard because where to start is always the biggest struggle. And that can be crippling because when you don't know where to start, you could really waste a lot of time and money and energy trying to figure it out.
Yes, yeah, sure. Absolutely. So, this is where I am in terms of business, really. I mean, like I say, Young Graduate taught me a lot of what not to do for the second business. And I'm quite happy to share where I thought where I did go wrong and what I would do different to anyone who's asking. But in terms of women over 40 who are thinking, desperation sets in. What can I do? Try not to follow the trend. Just look at what's out there. You might find there's hundreds of people, women, baking in the kitchens and doing cupcakes. And there's nothing wrong with that. But try and find your niche. And people say, well, how do you know? How do you know when it's right? How do you know when you've done something that's successful? How do you know when you're successful? What is it? And I always say, you don't actually feel success. You feel that things are quite natural. And when it becomes normal, it doesn't feel forced. That's when I guess people say it's successful.
I would have to agree with that. I know that with myself, I was in sales for 13 years, and then I realized that it wasn't no longer a fit for me personally. I went into a new stage in my life, and now with LaunchOver 40, I'm always excited. It's not work. I love doing my podcast. I have fun with all the women I get to meet around the world, and I'm learning something new every day.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it, and it doesn't feel like work. It's actually quite nice to get up on a morning, look out your window and think, great, what have we got on today? And you just go with that feeling. It is about, a gut feeling and a good feeling. The 2 G's, I say, guts and goods. If it doesn't feel that good in your gut, it's probably not right.
And I do agree with the feeling forced. There was situations and little things I was looking into that, it's like logically it made sense. But when I started the process, I realized it just wasn't an interest to me. There was no passion there. And with LaunchOver 40, we're really passionate about helping women, create additional income so they can retire well. Because over here in America, one of our biggest concerns, especially when you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, is Social Security right now. That is something that is definitely up in the air. And how do you retire well when you just went through a recession? A lot of people over here, and I'm sure over in the UK, and really around the world, lost a lot of money in stocks and stuff when the recession hit. And if you go 3, 5, or 10 years, before retirement, or you're in retirement, you need something else to really regain that. You really don't have the time to turn around and wait for the market to grow back to its place because your time is against you.
Yes, definitely. It's pretty much the same here. And they've said there's more business startups now since the recession. More people are looking at, starting businesses. And I think it's about being resourceful. People are saying, well, there is no money out there in terms of, jobs. Let me be more resourceful and bring my own money in. And I think that's what's happening now. But I think people really need to look at it and research it before they jump into it, because it isn't an easy road. And like I say, if it feels forced and it doesn't go with your gut, it probably isn't the right thing that you're doing. It might be business is right for you, but it's just not the right business or service that you have at the moment, or the right product. But if it feels great, it must be good.
And that's a good point, because I think sometimes people get discouraged, especially if basically doing business or basically being an independent contractor, which is a 1099, is, you're not necessarily have a business license, but you're offering services for a fee. Those things, if it's new to you, you're going to feel a little uncomfortable anyway, but you have to really push through to find what works for you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I could have given up on Young Graduate, when I was asking the schools, and there wasn't interest in it. But I just knew in my gut it was the right thing to do, because there wasn't nothing out there already like it. So I knew it was the right thing to do, even though it was put on a shelf for a couple of years. It was easy for me to take it up where I'd left it. and run with it. But I just knew it was the right thing to do, and I felt comfortable with it. And it's like anybody else. If they feel comfortable with something, just don't give up. Really don't give up. Because, you'll have that door shut in your face I don't know how many times. You'll be told it'll never work. I've had all those comments made in the past, but what I had was self-belief.
And I think that's what's going to carry you through with anything. You have to know, because I love always think about the fact that when I first got married, my husband and I decided that I was going to stay home full time to raise the kids. And it was the first 10 years before I went into sales, and I went into sales so I could still be available for my sons at that point, because my husband was at least an hour away. So to be an hour away, have both parents at least an hour from the house, just wasn't feasible as far as we was concerned. But at the time that we was raising our kids, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had people telling me at the time I was doing it that it couldn't be done. And I always find that kind of interesting that you're doing it, but there's people who on the outside is trying to tell you what you can't do.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I tell people now, if this is what you want to do, you kind of almost have to block some people out, no matter who they are to you, husband, family, children, because if they can't see it for themselves, you can't expect them to see it for you. You know what I mean? If I can't see myself being at a certain point or doing a certain thing, and then you come to me and say, this is what I want to do. Well, if I don't have a vision for my own life, it's going to be hard for me to have a vision for your life. So sometimes you do have to just love them from a distance.
Yes, I agree. Totally agree. People say, like they say, it'll never work. It can't work because, and there's always, a because there in the question. But have you ever done it, and have you ever seen it before? That just doesn't mean because it's not been done before, it can't be done. Because somebody says it's wrong to do, it might not be the wrong thing. It's just that it's never been explored before. I had the question, well, why do we need to do it? I kept saying, well, why not? With graduations, that was my question. Well, why do we need to do it? Well, why not? Why shouldn't we give young children or young people the same kind of sense of accomplishment and achievement as an older person? Does it not make sense that people like to be rewarded for their achievements, whether you're 2 or 202? It doesn't matter. It's not an age thing. It's an emotion, isn't it? So, if people say why, I just say, well, why not? And if I have to make that decision to put it in place, well, that's where I'm going to take it to, and hopefully get to the next level.
And I think one thing I always like to remind women is men are finders. They find things. Well, women, we create. And I think sometimes in business we forget that we are creators. And that's just one of the wonderful gifts that women have.
That is so true. That is so true. Yes, we are creators. I will agree with that one as well, Yolanda.
Well, Dee, I know that we are definitely probably cutting into almost your dinner time, because it's almost it's after 5 o'clock where you are, but it's 12 o'clock noon here.
Okay, yeah, that's right. That is right.
Well, I do appreciate the interview. I'm kind of glad that we finally connected, and you just have a great day. And again, just give us your website if those people didn't get a chance to write it down earlier, just so they can connect with you. It's savvyguest.com, and that one they can put their email in, correct?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we've got Savvy Guest, which is S for sugar, A, V for Victor, V for Victor, Y. Guest, which is GUES for sugar, T for Tommy.com. If you go on that if you go on that website, you can put your email address in, and we will register it and send you a link when we go live. And in terms of young graduate, our website is younggraduate.yola, which is YOLA, site, which is S for sugar, ITE.com. And if you go on that website, you'll be able to have a look at the partners and the work we've been doing here in terms of school graduations and participation in with alternative education projects in the universities.
Thank you for joining Launch Over 40 Radio. You can sign up at launchover40